Okay, this video is going to show how to use the linear diameter option when creating a revolution in Autodesk Inventor. So we're going to start off by looking at the drawing here. This is the drawing of the object that we're going to draw. Notice it's got a cylindrical face here in the front view. It's round. And in the side view, I've created a section. We're going to learn how to do that a little bit later. But notice that here I have my diameters as linear diameters in this view rather than in the circular view. If I close this drawing, you'll see that the drawing itself, when we're done with it, or the revolution, is just going to look like a simple pulley like this. It's got a hole through the center. It's got the web there. So that's what we're going to be drawing. To go ahead and start in here, if we look at a plain drawing here, the first step would be to create a new sketch. So we'll go up to the Start 2D Sketch. And because we want the front plane here, this plane right here is going to have the cylindrical view, we actually need to create our sketch on the side view plane there. The profile is going to go on this plane. So I'll click there to get the profile view. And then we're ready to begin our sketch. The first thing we want to do is to project the z-axis as a center line. By doing that, it's going to allow us to dimension to that center line and give us the linear diameter option. So I'll go in here and I'll say, okay, let's switch to a center line option up here. If you look at that button right there, it's going to allow you to draw center lines. And then rather than drawing a center line, what I want to do is I want to just project that z-axis. Notice down here that I'm on the YZ plane. This is the z-axis. I want to project that z-axis as a line. That prevents me from having to dimension it because the computer knows that it's an infinite axis that goes on forever, ever. So I can do that by going over here in the browser to the origin, expand the origin. You'll see that the z-axis is right here. We'll go to Project Geometry and then just click on the z-axis. And you'll notice that the z-axis is now projected as a center line. Now that we've projected that as a center line, we're going to turn off that center line geometry just by clicking on it again. And now we can go ahead and begin to draw our geometry. So we want to draw approximately the right size and shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to use my line command here and just kind of estimating, based on my X and Y positions here, I can say, okay, it's going to, come over like this and then up some distance and then over, and then I can make the web here of that pulley. The top is a little bit wider than the bottom, so I'll make it on purpose a little bit wider here. And then down the rest of the way, make sure that I infer these constraints as much as possible. Great, so now I've got my geometry approximately the right size and shape. The next step is to go through and add those constraints. And so I know that I want this to be centered over my start point right there, so I'm going to put in a horizontal constraint. Now, it's horizontal even though this on our screen is a vertical relationship between what's going to be the midpoint of that line and there. Because it's the YZ plane, it's actually a horizontal constraint. So I'm going to say I want a horizontal constraint between the midpoint of that line and the center point there. So I've clicked on both of those. I also know that I want both of these to be equal. I want both of these to be equal. And so now by doing that, I have, in essence, pretty much put all the constraints on there that I need. Because if I move this one up and down, notice that they're going to stay constrained. If I move the thickness of the web, it's all mirrored everywhere we go there. And so we're pretty much good to go here. The next step is to go ahead and add in the dimensions. And this is where linear dimensions or linear diameters come into play. You go to the dimension tool and you say, okay, I want to dimension from this line to the center line. And notice that it recognizes that I'm dimensioning to a center line, so it automatically gives me that linear diameter. So I can say, okay, I want that to be 6. I'll put it down and say it's going to be 6. And then if I need to, I can kind of readjust my geometry a little bit so that it's not going to jam it up at all. Okay, this one here is going to be 5.5. The middle one has a 3/4 inch diameter. and the outer one has a diameter of 2. And then it's just from here a couple more dimensions. That's going to be 1.5. This is going to be 1/4, 0.25. And then this one is 1.25. So notice now that everything is fully constrained. If I look down here in the lower right hand corner, you'll see that it says it's fully constrained. I have all my dimensions in place. So I can now tell it that I want to finish the sketch. I'll press F6 to display the whole thing. And now to complete the revolution, you simply go to the Revolve tool. Now because I have a center line and a closed profile, it's going to recognize that as such, and it's going to predict what I want. Because that's exactly what I want, I just choose OK, and that's it.